I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 Podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Ricci here from the F1 Podcast. Happy Thursday, August 1st. I'm here with my colleague, Andrew Cleary, and we're recording this a couple of days after the Belgium Grand Prix, and we're technically on the summer break. But, Andrew, I don't know about you, but there's been a lot of news that has happened since Sunday's race. But it's always good to see you. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, Ricci. You know, people come, people go, people switch teams for crazy reasons. People aren't supposed to be switching teams, or they should have been switching, but they're not because of certain reasons. I don't know. Silly season is upon us. It's summer. I'm excited. I can't wait to get into everything that's happened this week, including the race, including all the news. It is going to be a fun episode, people.
Yeah, it feels like we've been kind of waiting for something like this where we've talked about this in previous episodes, where it takes one driver to set the standard and then everything kind of collapses around it. Last year was 2 years ago, Sebastian Vettel's retirement. I don't remember what it was like last year, but I mean, it all started kind of really with Carlos Sainz on Monday, and Carlos Sainz has finally announced where he will be going for the 2025 season. Will be signing with Williams Racing. It's a 2-year deal, my understanding, 2025 and 2026 for when the regulations come into play. And then there is an option for extension. I don't know about you. I think this is probably a good move for him. You know, he wants to. It's ideal. There was not many more positions left on the grid anymore. So it's whether it's like, do you really want to sit out and do anything? When we saw James Vowles in Montreal, when he gave his presentation about his vision for the Williams Racing, not only did it look like that he drank a number of Red Bulls before getting on the stage,
Do a barrel roll.
Quite really excited. But I think this has been like an 8-month process that he's been trying to get Carlos Sainz to join the team, and it finally happened.
Yeah, he mentioned it was some late night meetings, some secret meetings in hotel rooms to try and get the signing, and it finally happened. I mean, this is a huge spot for Williams right now, signing a race winner in Carlos Sainz, one who's been really competitive in that Ferrari car over the past couple of years, and makes them the first appendixless driver duo, in Formula One. When James Vowles was talking about weight saving in the car, I didn't expect him to go both drivers having no appendix. But hey, here we are now. Great. He's playing chess while a lot of us are playing checkers. I'm just putting that out there.
You lose.
And I think, he's been very adamant that he knows the pressure that Williams is on. And we've seen Alex Albon been driving the car really well over the last number of years since coming over to the team. This now means that Logan Sargent will not have a seat at Williams next year, and they've made an indication that they're going to try to end this season on a high note. So, and he's going to try to have to find a position next year. I don't know, given his driving, that there will be a position next year, but James is really determined for this team and the history that Williams has in Formula One. And we've seen Carlos, some amazing drives for Ferrari. I'm thinking about the 2022 pole position in the United States. You have the Monza pole position in 2023. From hospital bed to P1 at Australia this year, the Singapore Grand Prix. There were so many memorable moments for Carlos in the Tifosi or in the red, per se. I'm wishing him all the best, and I think him and Alex are going to be a very good tangent between both of them. But I guess it's, I personally want Williams to do well, and I think just the story behind the team, and I think this was 8 months paid off, and they got who they wanted.
Yeah, and now I think this makes teams start to turn their head towards Williams and be like, oh, wow, they just did that, right? In the past, they've only been able to sign guys like, Stroll, but also, guys that have come through the rank from the junior program, a George Russell, a Valtteri Bottas, right? You had, Robert Kubica at one point in the team, right? Just to kind of, keep them afloat, Nicholas Latifi sort of idea. But now Williams is starting to make moves, and that starts in the driver lineup, right? Starting with Alex Albon, a couple years ago, right? Getting him onto the team. And now this is a marquee free agent coming to Williams in Carlos Sainz. And I think to really maximize kind of what they're going to get out of the car in the next couple of years, they need veteran leadership like Alex and Carlos to really be able to push the team forward, and challenge them to be better from a car perspective, right? Because these are two quality drivers, have won races in the past, and should really be now focusing on bringing Williams back into the midfield, and maybe eventually, you never know, when 2026 comes around, maybe they are up in the contention for World Constructors Championship. That is probably as high as the ceiling can go, cloud nine. But I think this is the right start for them to move forward.
And just thinking about the brand that Carlos Sainz brings in, he has won multiple races before, and he's done well on multiple teams, and his trajectory of his career has kind of been going up. And I'm looking at his Instagram page right now, 10.3 million followers. Just talking about the brand awareness that he's going to bring to the Williams family. It's really exciting. And I guess let's jump into, as one seat is filled, another one is still kept. Christian Horner has come out and said that Sergio Perez will be staying with the team throughout the remainder of the season. We've been talking about this nonstop since his decline in racing, since I don't remember which race it was, but he did start the season pretty decently, but he's somehow not been figuring it out at qualifying, whether he's not figuring it out at some race strategies. But I don't know about you, Andrew. What was your take on them keeping with Perez for the remainder of the season?
Works behind the scenes that we're not privy to that have made this decision. If you've been reading Reddit, if you've been reading Twitter, X, there's been a lot of rumblings that behind the scenes that Red Bull were really ready to make the move to have Checo out of the seat, but it was blocked by higher up, and not even within the own team. I mean, quote unquote, if we want to get into some conspiracy theories, Liberty Media pretty much said, no, you're not doing this, or you have to reconsider the move because of the potential revenue losses that would be occurred at the Mexican Grand Prix. And I think that's quite interesting. As well, there are some rumors, too, that Checo's manager, Carlos Slim, who's a Mexican mogul in the business world, became a shareholder of F1 TV. This is not confirmed at all, but there are rumblings that this happened. And if so, then if they became a shareholder of F1 TV, which is under the Liberty Media brand, this is very much a conflict of interest in terms of him continuing his spot. And based on the body language too, and what I've seen online as well. Again, this is all just from multiple sources, nothing really truly confirmed by people. It was pretty much you could see Dan and Max went in the helicopter with Jos and the team there. They were sharing drinks on the flight back from the Belgium Grand Prix, and I really thought that was going to be the team together moving forward. I'm not surprised that I'm very surprised that Danny Rick was not announced to be the new second driver of F1, and that they made a change to stick with Checo to the end of the season.
Well, so I think just to bring it back in perspective, if you're Daniel Ricciardo, if you're Yuki Tsunoda, if you're Liam Lawson, it's just okay, well, if you're sticking with Perez, all right, well, I'm gonna start looking elsewhere, because then you obviously need to advance in your career, and it is a big gamble, especially how much McLaren. And now recently Mercedes, don't worry, we'll get into the Belgian Grand Prix. There's a lot to uncover from that race. They've been starting to gain some traction to the constructors. Does it make sense for him to keep? But look, if they're still comfortable with him as that number 2 driver, and he's going to have to pick it up if they really have a shot of holding the constructors this year. And honestly, given just the lack he's done in qualifying, and maybe he had a decent or better than normal weekend out in Belgium this past weekend. But they're just always gonna have a corner on a bullseye on the back of their cars throughout the rest of the season.
Well, and everyone says, cash is king, right? That's a statement we hear a lot. And you really don't truly see it until these types of decisions because, Red Bull are just so traditionally cutthroat in terms of cutting their number two driver, right? They did that to Pierre Gasly, right, for Alex Albon right away. And then, basically a year and a half after that season, Albon got cut for Checo. And it was based on performances. Like Checo has been, I guess in a sense, like people like Gasly, you can make an argument that Albon and Gasly did perform better on some stages than Checo's recent performances have now. But I think he brings so much money from his sponsorships into not only Red Bull, but maybe into Formula One, that this decision was purely based on money and not on performance, which could really hinder Red Bull's opportunities to win the World Constructors' Championship by the end of the season because they are getting just their neck breathed down by McLaren, by Mercedes. Like they are catching up to the pack fast, and I don't know if Checo can really turn this around for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I guess time will definitely tell, and it doesn't. I've talked about this in multiple episodes. Is that Max needs a number two driver to help defend as he leads the race, and we've seen vulnerability. I mean, mind you, how many teams have won? How many drivers have won this year already? 7, I think it is. How many constructors? I think you had Ferrari, you had Mercedes, you had Red Bull, and you had McLaren. So it's like it's been a pretty interesting season, and then also like we don't really, and there's some other like we think that was it. No, they just kept throwing things at us every day. I'm like, isn't it supposed to be the summer break?
Yeah, not much break, just pure summer's business.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk about like the Alpines, their new team principal that they came out with again?
Like what a shit show this team
Do a
has
barrel
become.
roll.
Honestly, this is their third team principal in the past 2 seasons.
You lose.
Because it was announced before the Belgium Grand Prix that current team principal, Bruno Famin, is going to be leaving Alpine at the end of this month of August and being to be replaced. And then they just announced that they're going to be replaced by Oliver Oakes. But they must love making announcements before the Belgian Grand Prix about just putting this team under a fire sale because this is 2 years in a row now that they've announced this team principal move. And it's just that level of change at that high of a position, it just does not bode well for the team moving forward. And I don't know, you can make an argument that Alpine are purely in shambles right now.
It's ironic because I just rewatched the episode of Drive to Survive where, they sacked Otmar like mid-weekend in Belgium last year. And then all these people coming in with investments and then the consistent battles between Pierre and Gasly, Pierre and Esteban Ocon. We're already seeing that enough this season already. It just it kind of just feels like the revolving door, and it's just like there's no not winnable options, but there's just nothing is going right for that team, and we're all still trying to figure out who that second seat is going to go to for Alpine. Now with Ocon going to, I believe it's Haas, but I don't know. Am I expecting anything? No, more from Alpine? I don't think so. I mean, they're going to continue to battle for 9th and 10th at best right now.
Yeah, and Alpine are making decisions too in terms of switching engine providers, right, to Mercedes as well. Which I don't know if you saw this. A former employee at Renault, now Alpine Renault, basically put the company on blast on a LinkedIn post about talking how disastrous leadership of the current CEO of Renault Group has been current. He's not been able to rectify the mistakes that Laurent Rossi made over the past 2.5 years, which is inexcusable. And if they change engine providers, from what I'm gathering, impact over 500 plus employees at their French headquarters. Right now, if they were to change engine providers. So again, that's what I'm saying. This is just a colossal failure on multiple levels in this current organization. But if you're looking to try and find a bright side to Alpine, it may be now that Jack Doohan is kind of the potential for that second seat to be alongside Gasly in 25.
Yeah, someone like younger and, rookie-ish, like that would be probably ideal for them. I think ideally we would love to see more younger drivers in it than still maybe the same rotation. I should also mention that maybe that was kind of another reason why Carlos picked Williams is, James has the Mercedes engine in that car, and with everybody being at the regulations in 2026 back at ground zero, and maybe that is another position for them. Also, let's just keep on going. Like, I just can't get over some of these headlines. Like, we still need to talk about Jonathan Wheatley leaving Red Bull and become Audi's new team principal. Andrea Stella signing a multi-year contract with McLaren, and the success they've been having this season, Andrew. Like, I don't know, which one do you want to tackle first? But
I think let's tackle McLaren first, because I think we need some positivity out there. I think it's a great move.
I think these are all still positive things. I think it depends. I mean, also Erica's not here to defend her team, so I guess maybe we should roast McLaren a little bit.
I mean, Andrea Stella has done a masterclass in terms of turning this team around from what it was at the beginning of last year, right? We're not even from the beginning of last season, right? We were talking about how poor that McLaren team was in terms of development. They weren't there at all, right? Lando had 6 pit stops during the Bahrain Grand Prix. Oscar DNF'd. It was just absolute shambles for the McLaren team, but Andrea Stella has come in. He's really taken a direction that has made this car sing on the track. And they are now in a position where they're competing for World Constructors' Championships. And the only thing that's holding them back is their strategy. But that can be rectified. The car is a massive thing that they've been able to rectify. Now it's just a strategic point. And this contract is very much earned on Andrea Stella's part.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of the dog days. With their last race win prior to Lando Norris's was, Daniel Ricciardo in Monza in 2021. It's pretty remarkable to think how much the team has changed. Mind you, everyone's trying to catch up to Red Bull, and now we're seeing that even the McLaren is probably the car to beat. And hot take, I think they're going to win the Constructors this year. That is my mid-season change. You can quote me on that one. I think that the caveat is if he's going to be staying, I think his homework will need to train both Oscar and Lando of what is it like to be in first and second all the time, and what is it going to be like. You're going to have to make those decisions, those team order decisions, and it's does it really make sense? Because we saw that both in Hungary, the team orders that really caught some issues with them, but. I think he feels comfortable there. They're obviously getting results. They're getting trophies. They're doing much better than they were a couple years. And Zach Brown, he's going to have to find some more tattoos on his body, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, from a guy I was talking a lot of crap about. If Zach Brown wasn't going to get his, act together at McLaren, he was going to be heading out. Boy, that guy has turned around 180, really gotten his stuff together. Because remember watching Drive to Survive last year and that meeting he had with these executives from his top brands.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad. So good on Zach to get that sorted out going forward, and I think. This is a move that will only make McLaren stronger, and to a point where not only are they competing for World Constructors' Championships, we're having Lando Norris compete for World Drivers, Oscar potentially competing for World Drivers. I think this is a great move on McLaren's part.
Jonathan Wheatley is leaving Red Bull, and he played a role in 13 World Championships, and he's taking that opportunity to be the team principal at Audi next year.
But Audi haven't come out and confirmed that yet, which to me is so weird.
Well, is it still Sauber or is it Audi? Who's making the call?
Yeah, Red Bull released this 2-page press release on their Instagram page today about, thanking Jonathan Wheatley for all he's done for the team. As you mentioned, been together with 13 world championships between constructors and drivers, and then just announced that he's going to be joining the new Audi project as the team principal in 2026, effectively leaving after this year. His 2025 season will be the gardening period, and then he'll be joining Audi in 2026 as the team principal. Audi have not come out and confirmed it, which I think is really weird because you think that would have been a joint press release together at that point.
I wonder if, I'm sorry, I was looking at my phone. I wonder if just because they're not technically a team per se, I don't know, I say this in very big quotations, they can't say, oh, we're so welcome to enjoy them. I think, like, I don't think they have a website or like a page yet. So, like an Instagram page. But anyways, so I think, look, he has a huge history and experience behind him, and you probably, like, let's be real, Christian Horner is not going anywhere, and why not take that chance of being a team principal somewhere else? And, like, let's be real, I think, like, Red Bull will welcome him home back if things don't work out.
As you mentioned, Horner's the guy that's not going to be the one staying. Him staying is causing this team to fold because you have lost Adrian Newey now. And now you've lost Jonathan Wheatley because I'm going to assume this is because of the whole drama that's been going on internally for the past year. And then with those two gone, does a guy like Max Verstappen go to Mercedes? Like, that is, sure, that's the rumor, that's the joke, but, like, two of, like, Red Bull's top guys are gone now. And it just, like, is this team starting to collapse as we see it? At the top, right? You wouldn't think, like, a team like Red Bull that's been so tight knit over its entire year, right? Because they're like the rebel of the sport in a way, right? Being the energy drinks company in F1, that when you are a rebel, you stick together tight like a family in that case. But just seeing those two gentlemen leave, it's quite interesting. And I don't know what the next direction for Red Bull is going to be. I don't know who's going to be hiring as their sports director next. It would be really interesting to see where Red Bull go from here, and if there's any other major departures over the summer.
Mind you, like, it's what, Thursday, and we've had all this breaking. Like, we've kind of, like, sometimes have been struggling just to find information on what's going on. But I just can't get over the fact this. And let us know in the comments section what you think so far has been the big highlight of the summer. I think, Andrew, let's talk about the Belgium Grand Prix, last race of the first half, if you want to call it, of the 2024 season. What really stood out for you this weekend? Did you know that, I don't know if this is a real stat, but apparently the top 10 finishers of this past weekend were all F1 driver winners, and that's the first time that it's been 10 people that have won a race that have all placed. Yeah,
no, which is, like, crazy to think because of how, it's just how far the sport has come, right? We had, we've had multiple winners this season, right? Being 7. We didn't have a new winner this weekend, probably this past weekend, in George, technically, but Lewis, haha. But no, it's really cool to see that, the top 10 of all race winners, and to have it as the first time in Formula One. I think that just goes to show how progressive the nature of the sport is, and that anybody can kind of win a race coming forward in that case. What stood out to me this weekend was, honestly, Yuki Tsunoda. He started P60 and was able to finish P18. Like, he jumped 42 spots. Like, congratulations to the man. This guy started out in the back parking lot, was able to finish ahead of P18.
What is that? Is it the golden star or the blue shell? Okay, what's the thing that gets you in front of everything in Mario Kart?
Oh, the bullet. I just rocketed the bullet all the way up.
Yeah, I think the thing that stood out for me this weekend is that 1.5 kilograms will lose your race.
And it was such a unique strategy, right? Because you could tell how pissed off Lewis was at the end of this race because he listened to team orders doing the 2-stop, and George, made the 1-stop work. Like, I was calling him a 1-stop king this weekend because he managed those tires so well, almost too well, because I don't know what the reasoning for the weight could be. It could be loss of rubber on the tires. It could be the extra fuel used in the race as opposed to slowing down, coming into the pits, and then coming back out, right, for that lap. Who knows? But yeah, 1.5 kilograms is the difference between P1 and like from 25 points to no points.
Because I don't know about you, but I didn't catch the race till a couple, like 30 or like an hour later. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, as they had his podium celebration, then the marshals so then he got called to the marshals, and then Lewis gets it. It's just like heartbreak for him. And like, I mean, obviously Lewis continues to win, and then Oscar, you know, 2, Leclerc 3. I think I was very happy with Leclerc in qualifying. He took a car that clearly shouldn't. I had a feeling that he was not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the cars, but I mean, it's still a promising finish for him, per se. And I mean, I'm just trying to think about this, but like, yeah, that qualifying, he was able to take that red tractor to the pole position.
Well, Max had an incredible qualifying, right? You know, given that he had taken a 10th place grid penalty for taking a new engine component, he beat the field by 0.6 of a second in qualifying. And I thought, you know, maybe this guy has a chance on Sunday to start from P11, a position that he's never won from, and, you know, get to the top spot on the podium. Just wasn't meant to be. What was really fun about this weekend was that there were different strategies having to be played out because of the tire situation, right? And who kept soft, who kept medium, who kept hard. McLaren were rapid on the hard tire. I didn't see it. Like, Oscar was just an absolute bullet down in the McLaren on those hard tires and really pushed Lewis and George at the end.
And normally, like, when we talk about the hard tire, that's the tire that takes the longest to heat up. And the fact that the speed that some of the McLarens were driving was pretty remarkable. I was going to ask, did you notice anything else this past weekend, particularly? Like, I mean, Oscar had a good weekend. I think, you know, Lando, maybe not the greatest of weekends, but, you know, still respectable. 28 points for the team, just to keep and like technically as a team outscored Verstappen by 16 points.
I think what stood out for me, we talked about this guy earlier, why he kept to see it, but Checo. He had a great qualifying finish, starting P3, and he just couldn't figure it out on Sunday. It was funny because he made a comment after his qualification on Sunday that made it. He said, like, you know, it's not like I forgot how to drive.
You lose.
I'm like, well, dude, you lost P6 by like 25 seconds. You know, and you were getting put. It was just it was not a good weekend to finish up for Checo. I thought Aston Martin had a pretty good showing. You know, Fernando starting P8, finished P8, got some big points, and Stroll was, you know, he started P15, was able to get into P11. Really liked his driving this weekend to try and, you know, get on Ricciardo for points. But you know, shout out to Danny Rick, right? He did his job this weekend by getting into the points. Unfortunately, something Yuki Tsunoda was unable to do, right, just because of the engine penalty in that case. But, you know, Danny Rick must have been feeling incredible coming out. Like, scored points in that, you know, in the V card. Was able, you know, thinking that, I'm going to be number 2 driver's seat. And then, yeah, unfortunately, the weekend folded as the way it did. But I thought it was good. Good on Alpine to get some points, especially in that new livery. The Deadpool Wolverine, you know, theme livery to, you know, pay homage to one of their owners, Ryan Reynolds. So it was good for Ocon to get into the points there and really showcase those neat liveries that they had.
I guess, what is your take this summer? Like, what do you think that we're going to see? Do you think all the drivers are going to be determined by the end of the summer?
I hate this. I don't hate to say this. I think Mercedes are back. P1, you know, a 1-2 finish technically without the DSQ. And they've won 3 of the last 4 races. Like, we have to put that into perspective. They've won 3 of the past 4 GPs. And they're starting to make their charge back through the field. And I don't want to say they're back, but they're very close to being back in Mercedes. And it's almost like, okay, how does that transition into the final 8-9 races of the season now? And what I'm really concerned about is, you know, what can Max do by himself really to be able to hold on for the championship?
it's going to be a lot of tough driving. And he's not afraid to put his elbows up and show why he's the 3-time world champion.
But if they are like the second or third fastest car in the grid, and this guy, it's going to be a challenge for him to keep to win a race potentially this postseason or the second half of the season, and you need to win races in order to win the championship, really, right? Because all the points matter at this point, and thankfully we're at a position now where he's not running away with it, and it's going to become more entertaining as the season goes on.
But time will tell what is going to happen. We have a lot planned this summer. I think, we continue to follow us on our social media channels. We might have a couple of interviews lined up. I think we're going to do a fan meetup, Andrew. I think we're hoping to go back to Trinity Common for the Dutch Grand Prix. So stay tuned. Follow us on all of our LinkedIn trees. Erica couldn't be with us at today's episode, she says hello to everybody. And you know what? It might be the summer break. We're not going to be quiet because there's so much to talk about from the F1 world. And honestly, this is probably the most exciting season that we've been following in our almost 5-year history. But stay tuned. Time will tell on this week's episode of the F1 podcast. My name is Ricci, and I'm here with Andrew. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and we will see you in next week's episode. Bye, everyone.